Okay, welcome back. As I said, we were going to do a little bit of a treatment for, or a treatment example, I should say, for AS, not necessarily in particular, but definitely something that is utilized for the treatment of ankylosing spondylitis. My friend Matt's now sitting here relaxing on my plinth, or my table. I'm going to be showing you three different things today. One, I'm going to use the tongue depressor. Here we go. Love it. To get in between, sorry, ticklish, the ribs along the intercostals. I'm going to use my scanner just to, one, see what I feel, kind of diagnostic purposes, and then also just to scrape kind of the surface of diaphragm, ribs, and probably a little bit of rectus. And then I will also show you a quick little tidbit on what we discussed in the other video with Matt on the occipital release. So it may not be the prime example 100% of a treatment that I would do in the clinic, but I want to show you a little bit of an example of each. I'll do one side so you guys can see, and then I'll stop the video and I'll do the other side. Something to consider when you are doing IASTM treatments is to address both sides, not just the affected side. Ribs in this case usually are both, but for something such as hip pain, you want to think along not only kinetic and fascial chains, but also if you fix one side and loosen it up to the point where it's pretty normal, you want to address the other side, because if one thing is wrong on, say, the left, the contralateral side, the right, is probably what's the word I'm looking for, overcompensating. So keeping everything as symmetrical as possible is key. So here we go. First, I'm going to take scanner. Now these are cold, I'm sorry, but can't avoid it. And I just spread it on. And I have a nice little spot here where I have some emollient, so I don't have to double dip just for infectious reasons. Not that he's infected. But I also I use gloves when it's not me or my husband or something like that. And in a patient scenario, again, not double dipping in my little pile. In a patient scenario, you should probably wear gloves just in case. Most places require you to anyways. So after I spread it on, I might put a little bit more on towards chest. Everybody's style is different. Some people don't necessarily spread it on as nice. For me, I like to, because it desensitizes the area a little bit, especially stomach, ribs tends to be ticklish. So if I just kind of comb the emollient on, it desensitizes the area so I don't just dive right in. Okay. So for me, again, this is the scanner. I'm going to see what I feel. And it really doesn't take, crunchy, doesn't take much effort. Now my angle, it doesn't bother me. It's not necessarily optimal. I could come here. It's a little crunchy, huh?
Yeah, I can feel it.
But this is taking little to no effort, and I can feel the reverberations in this just fine. What I can also do is have him kind of go into external rotation, so more of an anatomically correct position, and then scrape up to where pectorals go into the shoulder. Something we didn't really touch upon is the fact that other joints with AS, not just the spine, are affected, and a lot of times that's shoulders and the knees. Knees because it's a kind of a systemic autoimmune / inflammatory process, but also shoulders because it's directly connected to ribs, neck, back. So you tend to have decreased forward flexion, etc., which just presents a whole nother set of issues. So pectorals, they start at sternum and go a couple different places. So you want to make sure you're getting the muscle in its entirety and not just necessarily origin insertion or belly. And I tend to go a little bit past into shoulder because it directly connects. Okay, so you can't really see, but I'm going along shoulder over into deltoid. Now the ribs. This little thing is fantastic. It has two ends, single bevel. Okay, I already have plenty of emollient. For me, I still like to use my hands to feel around where I'm going. He's thin, fit, an ectomorph, so it's easier for me to see, yes, I'm complimenting you,
Mm-hmm.
his figure, but for others that may have a little bit more of a blessing, or of course for females, you really want to be respectful and watch out with what you're doing. On that note, I think females might appreciate this more than you digging in with your hands. Okay. So for me, depending on the space between the intercostals, I'll go either thick end or thin end. And I just go right in between the ribs to see what I feel. And I feel junk. And
I feel it bouncing, so to speak, almost like a bumpy road.
It's like a stucco.
Right. That perfect example.
Stucco. So I'm actually not pressing that hard. I can press a little bit harder, and he can feel that, I'm sure.
Mm.
Again, paying attention to redness, especially because his is inflammatory. I don't want to set anything off. And remember, you do have some cartilage right here on the lower ribs, the floating ribs, so you don't necessarily need to go over that cartilage as much. What we haven't done, I don't even know if we ended up doing this with you or not, is he can, if he wanted to, and you can see the redness starting to form, I'm down there, breathe against it. So if I have him breathe, let me get another rib so it's not the same one we're working on. There you go. If I have him breathe out slowly and breathe in.
Oh, I was breathing. I'm sorry. I was backwards. Okay.
That was me probably.
And you might notice, I think Kate had touched on the last video about my chest expansion. So if you watch me breathe, that's it. So you notice nothing up here. It's all down here. So Kate is attempting to get some of that flexibility back between those ribs.
And he lights up a lot faster than most. And so this redness, interestingly enough, it'll dissipate in a couple minutes. The process that his body goes through is very different from the normal individuals. So when I start to see some redness, I immediately back off. I don't go towards the petechiae and the breakages of the little capillaries near the skin. And I don't go to the point where traditional gua sha would take you, where you have like the purple and the black bruising all up and down the body. This is already starting to dissipate, but that's just, again, paying attention to your patient. Okay, a little redness is normal, but excessive bruising is not. Okay, so I'm going to take this again, and I'm going to go into diaphragm. This side never felt as bad as the other side.
No, it's always a left. I was having several cases of a cramp up here on this muscle, and it was almost sticking out when Kate first addressed it several
like
weeks ago.
Ball right there.
Yeah, and it's 100% better now, and that's kind of tender there, Kate.
So right now I'm using one of the little multis. Okay, I wasn't going to use it, but I decided to use it anyways. The cool thing about the multi is it has little corners, and you want to be careful because listen to your patient. Hey, that's a little tender, or hey, listen to your patient on how much pressure you should be applying. But I can actually hook up. I'm underneath the rib now. How cool is that? I can get just off tangent here. I can get around the anterior portion of Achilles. You can't do that with your fingers. So getting up underneath, kind of changing angle to make it.
No, it feels good. Wow.
You break up things that you might not be able to break up. And I'm going very light. I'm really not pressing hard. And you can see, I'm going to show him one more time. I go up and under. I am underneath his rib cage. Very cool. Now, yeah, of course, I can do it with my hands. But look how much indentation you get in the rest of the belly just from my finger. Okay, that's a lot of pressure on liver, on intestines. Heaven forbid they didn't come in on a full tummy. If you go to the other side, obviously liver this side, stomach is over here. So there's just one example, well, 3 different examples really, of how to address intercostals. And I can even just still feel with my hand. A little crunchy down there. I might do a little more. But you can see it's already starting to lighten up a little bit. Okay, so once it turns red, again, probably not a good idea to press too hard. Coming down to the higher ribs underneath pec. Probably digging a little much there. And he lights up. Okay, so again, please don't be alarmed. Yes, this is red. No, it's not abnormal. but I'm going to back off a little bit and work on the other side. I'm going to put you on hold and start a new video on the occipital release, just so you don't need to see me walking around the room. So again, example of how to dig inside intercostals, diaphragm, and pectorals, all to help increase breathing for one, posture, and
Pain relief.
pain relief and interaction with the environment. So you don't want somebody looking at the floor the rest of their lives. That's just no fun. Be back.